Welcome back to a very special episode of The Rise today. You can see that I am joined by a guest, and I want you to drop whatever you're doing, turn off notifications, lean in, grab something to write with or type on because we have the incredible Sheryl Kline here today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sheryl and the conversation that you need to hear, especially right now in this very unique, this very challenging, and this very like potent time that we are in really our world history, right? So Sheryl, I'm gonna just rave about you for a little bit. Sheryl Kline is a thought leader. Like at the heart of it, Sheryl, you are a internationally renowned speaker. You are the author of the new book. Okay, you everybody, it's International Women's Month when we're recording this, and Cheryl's new book just came out on March 4th on fearless female leadership. This is the topic that we're going to get into today, how to be a fearless leader. Sheryl, you've spoken at the United Nations, you've spoken at the Athena Alliance, you're flying to Dallas tomorrow to speak on a big stage with women in technology. You're obviously, best-selling author. You've had your book up in Times Square billboards. You have coached Olympic athletes. You have coached C-suite women executives. You coach women who are coming out of the C-suite and working on their legacy. There's so many things and amazing ways that you are making and are continuing to make an impact. And it all falls under this umbrella of fearless leadership, which we're going to talk about today because it's more important than ever. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am just so honored to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have this conversation because there's a lot of fear in the world. And so the idea of being fearless and what does that really mean? And what does it take? And what is going to make the real difference? I know everyone listening wants to make in their leadership this year. What I love about you, Sheryl, is you will give an unvarnished, real answer to everything, right? We're going to have real talk today, everybody, because, it can be wonderful to say, I want to go be a speaker. I'm going to make an impact. I'm going to have a legacy. I'm going to write a best-selling book. But like, what does it really take, to do those things? So Sheryl, why don't you bring us into, we're in this unique point in history, as I said, where there are a lot of challenges in corporate life. There's a lot of challenges in entrepreneurial life. You coach people in all realms who are leaders. And so where do you think we need to start when we think about being fearless in this kind of an environment?
Well, I love that question. And first of all, just to be really clear, fearless does not mean the absence of fear. So whether you are an Olympian, best-selling author, CEO, or just getting started in your business or wherever you are, that we are all human beings. So we all have the range of emotions. We have anger, fear, doubt, like all of those things. But the difference between world-class performers and everyone else is that world-class performers proceed despite fear. So I just want to be really clear on what fearless means. So if your next level of thought leadership, if you're thinking you're like, it's scary to put yourself out there, whether you're recording your first video or you're going to go with you the next time to have your book up on a Times Square billboard, it is scary. So being world class, it just means, well, let me roll back. Fearless does not mean the absence of fear. It means that you have it and you decide to move forward despite it. And also, I want to just talk just a quick second about the word decide. It really means phonetically, it means death of. And so I love to talk about this because your listeners, get to decide what level of thought leadership that you want to have, and then you decide. It means it's death of any other option. It is happening despite fear, despite roadblocks, despite anything else. So, and also I just want to say is, you were talking about we're in a kind of a unique period in history, whether it's our climate, politically, all sorts of different reasons. And so this is not a rah-rah motivational talk and say, you got it, you can do it. This is more of it's an obligation, especially for women. Women have been in leadership since the beginning of time, 20,000 BCE. And the powers that be, whether it's religious or spiritual or what have you, have meant women to be in power, to at least balance out the patriarchy. And we're off kilter. So I look at this as less motivational and more of really, it's necessary now. We're at a critical point in history where we all need to rise.
Yeah, because that idea of we can wait for the system or the world or whatever it is to change is no longer a choice that we have for a lot of us in terms of what we want to see happen in the world and the empowerment that we want to see available to everyone, right? So I love, and just to like bring this point home and sort of, do some a little bit of integration here. Fearless does not mean we don't feel fear. It means we're going to feel fear. And we decide, to the death of all other options, to proceed with our calling anyway, with our legacy, with our destiny, with our calling. So, Sheryl, let's talk about a time. Can you show us like this in action? I know you coach people on this all the time, but you also live your work. And that's something I love, is the privilege of getting to, having worked with you and in Thought Leader Academy and Oracle, context, and help, working with you as you develop your book and speaking and all of these things. Like, you're also not someone who just doesn't feel any fear. And so is there something in the last few years that you could share with us where you had to live and rise as the fearless female leader despite the fear that you felt?
Oh, it happens all the time. When we were working with Fabienne, she would also always say, new level, new devil. So every time there's a new level, there is definitely fear. And I worked for 20 years working with world-class athletes and Olympians. So I was helping the best of the best get better, but I hadn't, for those 20 years, given myself permission to be the best,
Mm.
until I got an opportunity, I got called. So and that was 10 years ago. And so I would say, in answer to your question, gosh, I would say a great example is about 5 years ago. I got the okay to go speak and lead a workshop at the Women of Silicon Valley conference. And I thought they let me in by accident. It was like a 3,000 person conference. I had a 80-person breakout in the middle of the keynotes, down about a half a mile down the hall at the Marriott in San Francisco. Like, I had to put on running shoes to get down there. I knew no one would come down there. I was like, what if I'm the only, like, what if no one walks this far to come to my session? And so I went down there. It was standing room only. They didn't let me in. They said, "Oh, I'm sorry, the session's full." I'm like, "I know, but I'm
I'm the speaker.
and so anyways, I spoke, I hit out of the park. I'm like, oh, I'm so amazing. This was my first big conference. And somebody, the organizer of the conference, came to me after my session and said, "Oh, you did a great job." I'm like, "Thank you. I guess it wasn't a mistake that I was here, and I was really proud." And then she's like, "Well, the person opening the conference can't come tomorrow. So you did such a great job. We would like you to come on the main stage and open the conference." And I'm like, like 3,000 people, what does that entail? And she's like, "No, just introduce, like, this is Susie Smith from Google." And I'm like, "Okay, I can just, it'll be scary, but I can announce." And so after I agree and I'm walking away, she says, "Oh, and just think of like a 12 to 15-minute speech to open the conference." And I was like, uh,
Oh my God.
what? Um, and so then I had to do what I talk about and just decide. I'm like, this is I just said yes. I said yes before imposters, before all those things got in the way. I said, yes, no problem. Yes. And then I went up and like screamed in my pillow and then I had to like kind of calm down, because part of building confidence is emotional agility, which we can talk about today or another day. But it's kind of getting back to being in the zone of like, this is happening. What do I have control over that will
Mhm.
allow me to show up in service to the best of my ability for these people? And that's another point that I wanted to bring up, is it's not about us. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves and a lot of fear and a lot of all these things, but it's really about how do we show up in service for other people, and who are we letting down if we play small?
It's so huge, Sheryl, because like you said, what got you, recalibrated you to be able to create this 10 to 15-minute talk on the fly with less than a day's notice was making the impact for the people there. And that to me is one of the hallmarks of the work you do, that you teach, whether it's in your books or in a talk or when you're coaching people. And also what you did there, it's like, it's not about us. And remembering that someone said, "Do you want to know the difference between like amateur leaders and the really great leaders?" And I said, "Yes." This is years ago. And they basically said the amateur leader thinks it's about them. And the great leader knows it has nothing to do with them, right? That was the distinction that you just gave us. So part of fearless leadership, right? Everybody listening, number one, you're going to feel the fear and you're going to decide to kill off all the other options and go for your vision. And then when opportunity presents itself, I call it the oh shit moment, when you're like, I'm actually getting the thing I want. I'm going to ask you this. I shouldn't make an assumption. Did you at any point running down the hall in your running shoes, 8 miles down to the breakout room, think, I kind of wish I was on the main stage? Like, was that a vision you had, like that you were at, that you were going to be on the big stage with the 3,000 people?
No.
Okay, so
As
that
a matter
wasn't
of fact, I ran by the big stage going, thank God I'm not on that stage.
I was
Yeah. No.
laughing because I
I
was
mean,
wondering if it was,
it eventually did.
yeah,
But at that point, that was my first big conference.
yeah.
And my husband, my chief marketing officer, it's my husband, and he's like, oh, I got you in a breakout at the women. I'm like, was that legal? Like, how did you get me into this conference? Um,
I love the man behind the woman. We hear all the time the woman behind the man. And with your husband being the man behind the woman, like getting you that break, to have the breakout room that led to you opening. And I know you got like a standing ovation at that conference, and like it was just amazing, right? So let's talk about, if one thing we need to do to be more fearless leaders this year is to decide, that we're going to do the thing, we're going to do the vision, we're going to follow the calling, even when we feel the fear. And the second is, when opportunity comes, we're going to say yes. Say yes before all the barrage of fears and doubts and imposter syndrome and oh shit and all the things happen. We say yes. And then you figured out a way. You obviously got on the stage and you delivered this wonderful talk and opened the conference. So what else do we need to know right now? We were talking before we opened the show with um you know challenges in corporate. People are, there's policies being questioned. There's things people have devoted their lives to, like inclusivity and diversity, that are being questioned. There's things happening in the, public sector, private sector, not-for-profit sectors, entrepreneurial sectors. What is something else, when we think about being fearless leaders this year, that we need to know?
well, I think one thing that drives fear that paralyzes us is lack of control. So we don't have control it really over how much money we're going to make, if we get on a stage, if people don't resonate or think we're horrible, or all sorts of like different things. So we talked about saying yes when opportunity, and it's not just saying yes. Sometimes the opportunity falls in your lap, but also sometimes you have to go after it. I mean, I'm speaking at SHRM 25. Now there's 26,000 people at that conference. That's definitely a new level for me. I definitely have fear around that. But, the organizers of SHRM 25 did not call me and said, oh, I hear how amazing you are. Come speak. No, I mean, there was a process that we can talk about as far as.
Well, let's go there, Sheryl. Let's go there, because I want people to see. So you had this one thing where your husband got you into a breakout session. It led to this really exciting opportunity. You said yes. Great. But what I hear is, like, number three thing that everyone that we're talking about today is, you have to go seek the opportunity. Great fearless leaders don't just wait for things to fall in their lap. They do the work to be available for the opportunity to happen, right? So do you want to, like, almost, should we case study this for a second? Like, what was the process in getting to the point where you're speaking at a 26,000 person conference?
Well, what happens, we're going to go back to the decide. So, and also I want to share that clarity is very fluid. So I haven't been this clear, it's a process. So if, just be patient with yourselves. That's first of all. But I got to the point where I knew that for me to realize my mission and have the impact, which is working with 5 female senior executives and being on retainer for 3 of those companies, that I had to be in front of chief people officers, chief human resource officers, and some chief learning officers. And so I reverse engineered it. I'm like, where are they? And also, I'm a firm believer that as far as marketing goes, it's really important to do marketing that you love and that you're good at. And so what I like is being with people and talking and building relationships. And so I was like, oh, okay, I need to be one of the things I needed to do. And there are a couple other things for this year, but I needed to be at SHRM 25 as a speaker. And so there are a couple ways to do that. You can buy a ticket and show up and meet the people. We've talked about that before. I've
Yeah.
definitely done that. I've volunteered. I've done all that. But I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I have enough experience now. I'm speaking at that. And who do I need to know? They get thousands of applications for speakers. That is not the way to speak at a conference. I've learned that painfully the hard way. And so I'm like, I need to meet the executive director of SHRM.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, okay, how do I meet her? And so I ended up figuring out who I know that knows her. I featured her on my podcast and I listened. I listened a lot to her. And anyways, after meeting her and she ended up introducing me. She's an amazing woman. Her name's Betty Thompson. She was also the chief people officer at Booz Allen Hamilton
Mm.
consulting firm. And so she ended up introducing me to gentleman Derek, who is the entire program director for all of SHRM 25. And he's like, well, everything's closed. We have our speakers, but Betty referred you. So just fill this. Here's a link. And I filled it out and they accepted it. And that's how it happened. So reverse engineer
Amazing.
it backwards, like decide where you want to be,
Yeah.
and then make it happen.
And what would it take? So the brain science piece, those of you that you know on this show, we always break down like what is the brain science piece to this? The NLP or neuro linguistic programming technique that you can do here is you start with the visualization. You take yourself out into the future, like Sheryl, you did to SHRM 25. And you're like, I'm on that stage, I'm speaking. I'm not volunteering, I'm not an attendee, I'm a speaker. Okay. And then it's backing up, and you can even play the trick. Sheryl, you just did this because you're a badass at this. Anyone listening, if you haven't done this before, you just say, oh, what were the steps I took? Because this is a brain hack. You just say, what were the steps I took? What would need to happen in order for me to be speaking at SHRM 25. And Sheryl, you knew the most direct route was not going to be cold pitching the speaker pool. No way you're going to get discovered there. You didn't have the time to be speaking at the 2025 conference to go for a year and build relationships in that way for this one. So it was like, I've got to meet the person in charge. Well, how could I do that? Well, here's, how I might reach. I can invite her on my podcast. I can listen. I can be in generosity. How can I help you solve your problems? So I love this so much. And how exciting that's now coming to fruition of that future vision. And I know the UN was on your vision board, right? And that came to fruition. I mean, we got to decide. It's not just putting it on the vision board, it's deciding I will be at SHRM 25. I will be speaking at the UN, whatever it is. So I want everybody listening to think of what is that dream speaking engagement. Take yourself out into the future, do what Sheryl did, and then ask yourself, what are the steps? Like, what would have to happen?
Yeah. And I also want to add too that I didn't start there. Like I started speaking to 12 people at a lunch and learn at Morgan Stanley for free, you know,
Yep.
and I've done like my share of those. I also did 2 years of speaker training,
Yeah.
and a speaker mastermind. So if you're thinking like someday I want to be a speaker, but I've never been a speaker, or no one's ever paid me or what have you, just do it and know that it's a gradual process. And we all started off speaking for free. Um, and and it's important to learn too how to be a speaker. So you
Mhm.
want to be a speaker someday or speak for your business. Maybe the first step isn't getting on a stage. Maybe it's learning how to be a better storyteller, or it's
Sure.
learning how to be a speaker first, or what have you. So that first step is the first, second, or fifth, or 10th step, or whatever it is going to be different for everyone.
Well, and I love that. Like you said, if you've got your dream speaking thing, again, what would need to happen or what were the steps? And it could start with, like you said, oh, I'm going to work on my craft a little bit, or I'm going to join this thing. Now, Sheryl, let's talk for a few minutes about apples and orchards. So, Sheryl, this is our shorthand. So we were in Mexico together as part of our, thought leader mastermind. Sheryl, when you were participating in that, and of anyone there that did that training, obviously you and I probably are the most passionate about it, and like live and live, no dying, live and live by it. So really what you're talking about here apply, like I'll explain apples and orchards, just a real quick overview, but that's what you're living and that's what you're putting into practice. So if you haven't heard this before, because we really just teach it in our coaching programs, you know, apples are your people that you have connections with. So Sheryl, I don't know, but when you spoke for 12 people at Morgan Stanley, was there someone that you knew at Morgan Stanley, or what was the pre-step to how that one even happened? Let's use like an
Oh
illustration.
yeah, that was my investment advisor.
Great. So you have an investment advisor who's already at Morgan Stanley. And so apples are people like that you are already in relationship with, that in some way either have an audience or are connected to an organization or a group that has an audience, right? Those are what we call your apples. And the strategy for apples is, Cheryl, what did you reach out and just say, I'd love to come speak to your group, or or did she just know because you'd coached Olympians and other things, that you'd be a good fit? Like, do you recall?
Yeah, well, this is going to go, and we won't go too far down the rabbit
Okay.
hole on influence, but influence is really about learning more about other people,
Mhm.
and really understanding what their needs are and standing in their shoes. So I was thinking about, okay, I'm an investment advisor. I'm building my book of business. What would be helpful for me?
Right.
Like as if I was her. And
Yes.
so I was thinking a little bit about the mindset of money and how to be world class and mentally tough when it comes to your money.
Amazing.
So then,
Taking your
yeah,
expertise around being world class
yeah,
with her topic, what is going to help her? What's her big desire? Build a book of business. What can help her? Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And so I just came to her and I said, hey, I really appreciate what you've done for me. It's been really impactful. Um, would it be unreasonable to have a lunch and learn and invite some people in to add value?
amazing. So I want everyone to get, whether you're talking to your apples or your orchards, which we'll talk about next, it's generosity. And Cheryl, again, you live this, right? It's like you put yourself in her shoes, not I, Cheryl, want to come speak at Morgan Stanley. It's what does this financial advisor who's building her business need? What would be a value add for her people? And then boldly, fearlessly, fearless leadership, go ahead and ask. The person might say no, but they can't say yes if you don't ask, right? So that's your apples. You be able to think what could really help them and share that. Then orchards are our originally Sherm was the orchard, right? I'm guessing. Like orchards are, oh my God, this is my favorite author, thought leader, corporation, organization, philanthropic group that I'm not on their radar yet, right? Our orchards are the people, they don't know about us yet. We are not anything, they haven't heard of us, they are not in relationship with them, and they're big in scale, right? And so for orchards, sometimes, Cheryl, you and I've spent sometimes certainly months, most often even years leading up to getting to collaborate with an orchard or speak at an orchard type of event, right? So we just like, so it is not a short game play with the orchards, right? It's all about generosity. So what are some of the things you've done? I know I've shared in here before things, I do for orchards, like buying their book, so going to their events, finding out who's organizing their events. How can I help? Promoting what they're doing, promoting their launches, giving their books as gifts, giving them 5-star reviews on Amazon on their book. Because really famous, well-known people and organizations still need engagement. They still need support for their thought leadership and, their books and their podcasts. What are some of the things that you like to do for orchards?
Oh, that's a great question. So I have a top 20 list. It used to be of people, and now it's really of organizations. So it's changed a little bit for me, but it's a top 20 list of organizations that are very supportive of their women leaders, that have at least 50% female leaders in their on their ELT, executive leadership team. And so it's something, a term, and I'm not sure why I keep quoting Brendan Burchard. I work with him for so long, but he has a term, and usually it was used for social media. Like it's important to create what he calls circular virality. So that is like, and we've talked about that before in your mastermind, but it's, hitting people from different angles. So it's YouTube, it's Instagram, it's LinkedIn, it's, whatever. But I think about that term for my top 20 list. So it's not just one thing. If you do this one thing, but it's really figuring out and getting clear again, decide on the people or the organizations that would be your dream. And again, talking about NLP, it's like, it's not like, oh, I wish someday this would be amazing to work with them. It's no, okay, I so for me, what I think is like, I have 5 female leader clients. Like I have them, and this is the work that we do together. And this is the feeling that I have when I'm done with this session. And this is what it cracks open for them and the impact on their organization. And then
Mm-hmm.
thinking about these are the organizations that I am on full retainer for. And this is how much that I'm earning on full retainer. And this is the impact that we're having together. And then with that top 20 list and answer to your question, it's thinking about how can I get in front of them as many ways as possible. So the book is great. I'm in the process of sending, having that ambassador program, which is probably
Yes.
another conversation.
Yes.
Really essentially just sending them a book, but not just sending them a book, sending them, it's like wrapped a certain way. It just has your whole, it's something that they can hold on to, but it's the book. It's, for my social media platform that I'm on the most is LinkedIn. So it's just, putting them as connections and also putting their companies, following their companies. So I'm going to be I'm very aware of what's going on in their company, what's going on with them, being very engaging that way. And I will show up at event, like I will show if I can, and there's an event, I will show up there. Or if they're speaking somewhere, like how can I give, how can I support them? And generosity is important, but I think it's also really important to think of when it's appropriate, what is the ask? Because
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, I'm going to make a huge general comment that we women are not as good at asking for what we want. So it's important to give, but when it's appropriate, it's also important to think about so if this has come to fruition, what's going to be important that I ask for their benefit?
Yeah.
Because again, if we're playing small, we don't make an ask, we don't ask to like pull them in closer, then we're doing them a disservice as well. And also too, just being very aware of our value add, because people may have more experience, or they may, orchards are kind of scary talking about, being fearless. Sometimes, imposter syndrome creeps in, and it's like, well, who am I to be
Mhm.
contacting this person? But at the end of the day, they put their pants on, or one leg at a time, or skirt, or whatever they're wearing. And it's important to be very clear on your asks and what would be ideal and what it feels like when they say yes, rather than worrying about them maybe saying no.
I love the Jack Canfield thing, Cheryl, that's coming up for me around no just means next.
Mhm.
So I really love, sometimes people say, oh, we got to get a lot of no's before that. I love that no actually just means next, meaning, oh, if that's a no for someone, it's because there's a next person I meant to connect with on this. And so whether that's a potential client, whether that's a speaking engagement, sure, let's talk about something awesome that's just happened. We talked about you're flying tomorrow to speak at this amazing conference, and you wanted to have your books there for for people, right? So let's talk about, you made an ask and you've attracted book sponsors do you want to just share, like, so you put yourself into, I want the book available, right? Like, just let's walk us through an ask that you just made and succeeded in getting the sponsorship that you wanted for your books. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it's exciting. I've never done that before. And I also don't think I won't say all women. I am not so great about asking for money. Like, I don't know how everybody listening, like you talk about what you do and you're confident, and then your voice changes and you get all weird. Like, it's something that I've really practiced, and something that hit home for me was practicing asking for money as much as you practice preparing for a call. And so, but anyway, so as far as a sponsorship, for a while I couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm like, why would people give me money and sponsor? Like, I like why I don't know. It was just like, why would they do that? And I think that was all around me not giving myself and my book permission, or not elevating it to where it needed to be. It was just more of a barrier that I had for myself.
Mhm.
And so what happened was, I am flying to Dallas for the Women in Technology Network International Day of the Women Conference, which is in partnership with Microsoft's IAMCP, their whole big partner conference. And I was going to sell, they said I can have my book table after my event, I can sell my book there. And I thought, okay, well, that's amazing. But I'm like, how amazing would it be to have a book on everybody's chair and surprise them? And so then I was figuring out how much it costs to have them printed and shipped there and all of that. And I'm just gonna try it. And so again, my thought process is, who would it benefit to have my book there? Who could benefit from the exposure at that conference? And so what I came up with is the Rally, who is the company that I partnered with to produce my AI digital curriculum that's based on the book. And
Yes.
then also Unicia Pere, who is my wealth advisor.
Yeah.
And so they both said, I approached one of them first and they didn't do the full amount.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's okay, I'll take it.
Yeah. Right.
Uh, and then I got the other part. And so Unicia will have stickers in my book. So we had to kind of negotiate
Yeah.
so if they're going to give the money, what do they want? And you don't have to say yes to everything. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so all the books, 200 books will be covered for my
Mm.
breakout session, and we'll get to surprise everybody there.
And so you're gonna have an Oprah moment, check under your
Yeah.
chairs or
Yeah.
people like handing them out on the side. This is so awesome. So I want everyone, again, this is Sheryl, you're living your work, right? And I don't do walk the talk, I do live the work. And you live the work. It's like, oh, I have a vision, right? Vision. I'm deciding that books are going to be there for the people. We're going to surprise them. And so then what would need to happen for that to, okay, well, I don't, want to fund that myself. I'm already flying down there and everything. So let me find people for whom it would be a benefit to have visibility in that room in conjunction with my book. And there you go. And now all the people, so the win-win-win, I feel like that's where we can circle back around. Fearless leadership equals the win-win-wins. Fearless female leaders it's the win for you as the leader, right? You listening because you get to fulfill your vision and your impact, your legacy. It's a win for the people who receive this, these books that are going to be gifted to them and hear you speak, Sheryl. And it's a win for the world because you're being a model. All of you who take on Sheryl's, rallying cry here, right? This is a movement. Fearless female leadership is a movement. And so by joining this movement, you're creating a win for the world because we're saying no matter what's going on externally, in fact, even more importantly, if you don't like what's going on in the world, it's more important than ever to stand up and lead and be fearless and decide and make the asks and talk about the money. We need to talk about the money and nurture your apples in orchard. So, Cheryl, is there anything else we need to know? It's International Women's Month. You're out speaking. We're all going to get the book. We're putting the book in the show notes, so you can all get a copy. Get a copy. Sheryl has coached some of the best people in the world to become great, to become world class, and that's what I know all of you listening are here for. So, anything else we need to know, Sheryl?
Yeah, well, the title of the book, it got shifted
Yeah.
as I found out also 4 months before going to press that there was another book with the same name. So we shifted it to The Fearless Female Leader. So if you would like to look for it, then that's what the title is. And I would just leave everyone with letting them know that, you are good enough. And you are good enough, and to surround yourself by amazing leaders such as Sarah and the Thought Leader Oracle community, and just think about what's next.
Mhm.
Like it's one foot in front of the other, and know that we're at a point in history now where it's an inflection point, and it's not a nice to have. It's really important for women to rise right now. I look at it as a sense of obligation for us all to up level. So know that not only do I believe in you, I know you can do it. I'm cheering you on, and I really appreciate this opportunity, Sarah.
I'm so happy you're here. And let's end with that, everybody. Grab Cheryl's book. The link is here, wherever you're listening to and watching the podcast. Make sure you get the Fearless Female Leader. And also make sure you take something of one of the action steps Sheryl shared here today and put it into your life right now. Today, before you go to bed, take one action that you heard. Sheryl gave us a whole bunch. You gave us so many good things to think about. We're so excited for you, so excited for what you've already created and knowing it's really just the beginning. And congratulations on the book.
Thanks so much.
See y'all next time.